Good evening, family and friends. This is Dr. Yvette Mitchell, and I'm calling you from. Good evening, family and friends. This is Dr. Yvette Mitchell from ESI Educational Service. But this evening, I'm going to talk to you about grandparents taking care of kids. I'm going to take off the Dr. Mitchell hat for a moment and just put on the hat about grandparents raising children. Here you are at your midlife and maybe retired, expecting to travel the world and just take time off for you, and you're presented with an issue of raising your grandchild, whether it or grandchildren, whether it be for illness, drug addiction, jail, mental health issues, you are then faced with raising a child. And that in itself presents lots of issues. So I want to spend some time this evening just talking to grandmothers and grandparents or kinship parents. And a lot of this also has to do with adopted and foster parents that have the same issues bringing a child. First of all, we're going to talk about how you feel once you have made the decision to take on your grandchild, sometimes an infant. So here you are in your 50s or maybe 60s or even later, and you are faced with bottles and changing diapers and the restrictions of not being able to go and move when you want because you now have this child in your care. And so your first feeling might be one of self-pity, self um, self-anger, self some frustration. And you need to be sure that you take some strategies so that feeling doesn't overwhelm you. One of the things that have been said to me is they really start to feel anger towards the bio parent or your daughter, your son, and sometimes anger towards the child herself, his or herself. And that is very natural. It is very normal. It's normal that you identify it and then work through it to understand that this is a child that had nothing to do with the situation that he or she is in and deserves, because it's a child, deserves love and care of someone who has its best interest at heart. So if you are struggling with that, depression, feeling sorry for yourself, all of those are normal feelings. So I want you not to feel that something is wrong with you because all of a sudden you're feeling annoyed or angry at the child. They are normal feelings, but you need to be able to work through that. Just like you may have had some challenging feelings when you were in postpartum with your child after the birth of your child. These are normal issues, especially in midlife when you have moved away from those types of activities. And here you find yourself back in it with your child. And it's truly coming from a place of love, but it doesn't stop the feelings that you have. So you need one of the things that I have found, and I'm going to give you my story in a little bit. But one of the things that I have found is that I eat better. I consciously make myself eat better. I also exercise better and keep my mind active. Even though it's challenging when the child is very little, but if the child is old enough to look at TV or read a book or play in a room for a while, you do things to stimulate your own mind. So I suggest, if it gets more difficult, that you seek some professional help that will help you through the particular crises that you're in. The second thing you might feel, and it's real as well, is anger towards your bio child, be it your son or your daughter who may be going to jail, your daughter who just doesn't want to be a mother, or your daughter who just doesn't know how to be a mother, or whatever the situation is. What I need you to do is to first just take a breath. Just take a breath. First of all, the fact that God has allowed you to be here and to be here for this child. The second is to make sure that you don't feel that you did something wrong, because your child is out of sorts, be it a child on drug addiction, mental health, or in jail. You need to take a breath and realize you did the best you could with the tools that you have, and that the tools that you have got your child to a point where he or she made the decisions that he or she made. Those decisions are not your fault. Those decisions are not your doing. You provided the home that you could for that child, and that at a certain point, every human being has to make their own decisions. The thing about it is that they have to make their own consequences. Unfortunately, sometimes those consequences involve us, in this case, the child. Since the child, however, is an innocent being with all of this, it does not deserve to be caught in the middle of the problems that the parent is having. And it's going to be very difficult, and they need a sound mind and a sound body to work through the ordeals that they're going to face. Because if you whether you're taking care of the child temporarily, or wind up taking care of the child, as I did, for its entire life, till it went off to college and then a life of its own. So there are many, many situations that come up, and we have to, as grandparents, just take a breath and first identify honestly if you can do it. If you cannot, you need to seek some, need to participate in where the child is going so that you know that you can have peace of mind. But be honest with yourself, and then don't feel bad if you honestly come to the point that you cannot do it. Because sometimes caring for little ones, especially very little ones, require physical stamina and mental agility that you just may not have. And it's okay. It's okay. Fostering Lives here, the podcast that I'm starting, this is a new podcast, came about as a result of my personal experience with raising my grandchild. I got a phone call at my office. I was building a thriving daycare business, and I got a call from my son, who was living with me here in Philadelphia, as a result of separating from his wife for a period of time. It was a cooling off period where he had four sons back in California. So I suggested to come home, and he did, and give it a little time and break, and then make some decisions about what he wanted to do. In the meantime, he met a young lady, and she became pregnant. I had no idea. I had no concept. I didn't know who the young lady was. I didn't know that it had gotten that serious. But in any event, I got a call in my office one morning that said, "Mom, they're taking my baby." And I said, "Son, I did not know you were pregnant," just in that exact tone. "Son, I did not know you were pregnant. So what are you talking about?" And then he went on to tell me about this young lady. And I said to him, "I had no idea. And so what is it that you want me to do?" He related to me that the young lady had decided to give the child up for adoption, has selected the family and the orphanage, or who the system, or whoever it is, was coming to get her. Of course, my grandmother radar went up immediately, and I'm like, "Oh no, no grandchild of mine is going to be in the system. So let me see." And of course, I called my lawyer, put brakes on everything, and turned around. And before I knew it, I had this 7-day-old infant in my care. At that time, I was married, um, and spoke with my husband, and we decided to move forward with taking the child. Um, and it was a very joyful experience. He was a beautiful, beautiful baby. It did take some adjustment at 50 years old to talk about bottles and diapers again, but in any event, it was intriguing to me. I am a 40-year educator, and I just could not see my grandchild in the system with people that was not a part of her life. At any event, uh, you do the best you can. It was absolutely an adjustment. And moving forward from that, I raised her till she was 18, sent her off to college, and then she moved on into a life and apartment of her own, where she is thriving and doing well. Graduated as an honor student from college and doing very well. What I did not anticipate was, even though she led what I was not able to do for my older children as they were growing up, because my husband and I were in the middle of, building a business. But for her, I tried to give her what I perceived as a princess life. Strange enough, I probably overdid it, because there were also some underlying issues that she dealt with that really did not come to light till she was about 15 or 16 years old. And she started having panic attacks and anxiety. I had no clue. This was a child that was involved in all of my activities. We went everywhere we traveled. And nonetheless, she had her own issues to deal with. And I had to come to grips that her issues were not my issues. Her issues were the result of things that she did not talk about, or did not bring up, or we were not aware of, and thoughts and feelings that she had. Why wasn't she with her four brothers? Why was she rejected? Why did her mother not want her? So on and so forth. Those are issues that she continues at 29 years old to still struggle with to this day. But they are her issues. They are not mine issues, and I did not cause it. I did the best that I could and tried to provide what I consider pretty much a princess life. But today, she is a thriving graduate of college. Now, with a fiance, their wedding is planned for next year. She does have a child that he is the father, and they're thriving and doing well. She's learning more about what it takes to be a parent. Nonetheless, I wanted to talk to parents, grandparents, make sure that um, you feel supported and a community, because sometimes you have a sense of feeling alone. There's no one out there, no one understands you, because you're not able to go out like you used to. You aren't able to socialize with your friends. Your friends' children are up and grown and they have freedom you no longer have. So there is a mental adjustment for you. And I just want to make sure that you're on the right page with that, and to recognize that you, one, these are normal feelings, two, are not alone. I just want to tell you also in my story, during her first 2 years with me, my husband died suddenly. So now I'm a single mother, single grandmother raising an infant. And my oldest daughter, who was 18 at the time that my granddaughter came with us, was also going off. And I'm thinking, okay, my husband's not here, it's me and my daughter. And my daughter said, Mommy, I don't have kids. I don't want kids right now. I just want to do me. And so here I felt that I had lost my husband's support, but I had my daughter's support, but she had a right to her life. And I could not stand in the way of that as well. So there's a lot of feelings that you have, and also just behaviors that the children exhibit that you just don't understand. And a lot of it comes from trauma. So we're going to delve more into that as we get through our podcast, and I hope that you join me every week. I'm going to have live guests. I'm going to have other grandparents. I'm going to have experts to dive into the psychology and psychiatry of and the trauma that our children go through. So I hope that you will join me. I'm going to talk a minute again, about another feeling that you begin to have, not only the feeling of isolation, adjusting your life. What are you going to do for work? Are you able to go to work? Is the child's doctor or dentist appointments and all the other things that have happened keeping you from moving forward? We need to look into what are the strategies for that. And then you sometimes have older children, which is a whole nother ball of wax, because you deal with some problems and often showing up in behavior problems, um, coming out in the older children, where they become angry with you because they feel you are the one that separated them from their mother. Or if they're old enough and they've gone through neglect and drugs, then it's the trauma that they feel from all of the problems that they have. If the father's not involved, it's a whole nother level of issues. And then if the parent is your child, there's the other feelings that you have to work through. And it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. I want to acknowledge it and I want you to know that it's okay. But most importantly, in this podcast, we want you to know that you're not alone. And we want to form a community because I go through Facebook or I get calls every day as we are an educational service company. I get calls every day. Grandparents just exasperated from being in the situation. And it is a challenging one. And again, we'll be going through on our weekly podcast where you'll be able to interact directly, ask questions, find solutions. And if you so desire, we actually have a course for you that you can take to help you through the challenges, especially if your child is involved in DHS or has gotten involved in DHS. The whole custody issue, the appointments, the guardianship, the bio parents, on and on and on. The caseworkers, the social workers, it's a lot. I can only tell you from my experience that if I had to do it all over again, I would in a moment. My grandchild is a beautiful young woman and so inspired me as a 40-year educator. When she left for college, I got the great idea I need to now foster. This is something my husband and I had talked about before his sudden death about doing, always adopting or fostering and adoption. And so I reached out to DHS and told them I wanted a child under 6 or 6 and under, and got a call for this 6-year-old child coming from the hospital that they told me was just a general illness, that she had been burned, but it was not too challenging. However, when I got the foster child, she wrapped from her neck to her hips in gauze with oozing burns. And that whole situation with this child who had been in other foster homes and who had developed some serious behavioral issues, none which were disclosed to me prior to me taking her. She is now 15 and we are still working through issues, but she's becoming a young woman. And to the point at 2 years later, DHS called me again and would I take a 4-year-old sibling of this child? And I had, and she is my gift. So I want to tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And grandmothers, we are awesome. And grandparents, we are awesome. We can do it. And the transition or the transformation from making this task now a joy for us to work with and see these children blossom and grow and know our love and our care has made a difference. So I hope you stay tuned with me each Thursday night at 8 p.m. so that we can learn some strategies, answers, solutions, cry together, laugh together, have some real chat, not surface things, so that we can get to the heart of it, so that you can be the best you that you can be for this task that you've been given, for these precious, precious angels that have been put in our charge to care for. And I hope that I can help you with this process, and together we can foster lives. I look forward to seeing you every every Thursday at 8 p.m. on the favorite podcast channel for us to be able together to foster lives.